Good morning, everybody. I'm now calling to order the Subcommittee on Health and Human Services Appropriations Committee. And I just want everybody to know that the video will need to end early for our last presenter. Otherwise, this will be covered on House TV. Madam Clerk, please read in Chairman Albert's subcommittee letter.
Right, on a letter dated January 25th, 2021, the House of Appropriations Chairman Albert sent this letter to the clerk of the House of Representatives, Mr. Gary Randall, saying, as chair of the Committee on Appropriations, I appoint the following members of the 101st Legislature to the Appropriations Subcommittees for the 2021-22 legislative session. And for the Health and Human Services Subcommittee, those members are Representative Whiteford as chair, Representative Aller, Bolin, Glenn, Heisinger, Van Werkum, Bezan, Hammoud, Hood, Tate, Brabeck, and Thanadar. And that is the letter, Madam Chairman.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Can you please call the roll?
Representative Whiteford.
Here.
Representative Green. Representative Aller.
Here.
Representative Bolin. Representative Glenn.
Here.
Representative Heisinger.
Here.
Representative Bezan.
Here.
Representative Van Werkum.
Here.
Representative Hammoud.
Here.
Representative Hood.
Here.
Representative Tate.
Here.
Representative Brabeck. And Representative Thanadar.
Here.
Madam Chairman, you have a quorum.
Thank you, and welcome everybody to the hardest working subcommittee in town, right? We're here punctual right after committees were announced. But this is a really important month. It's Human Trafficking Awareness Month, and many people think that it's not a problem, or it's not in my neighborhood, or it has no effect on me, not really understanding the complicated stories that happen to lead people into this. But I will start out, though. I have a dear friend. Her name is Ruth Rondon. She was unable to come today, but she is here via Zoom. She was the first friend that I made. She had been exploited as a teenager out of Grand Rapids 30, 40 years ago. And she, throughout her pathway, she learned so many things. There you are, Ruth. I can see you on the screen. Throughout her life, she decided to take these bad things and turn it into good. And so her mission has been making sure that people understand what they can do to help somebody who has been exploited, trafficked, to help them to get to a better place, but to help professionals help those people. And that's really key. She's got a really lovely touch and a lovely voice, and I appreciate her so much. So she was actually in the first Human Trafficking Health Advisory Commission, and she just finished serving at the end of December. So I do have a state tribute to present to her. So the state of Michigan, special tribute to Ruth Rondon. Let it be known that it is with deep appreciation for the hard work, dedication, and professionalism that Ruth Rondon has put forth on behalf of the Michigan Human Trafficking Health Advisory Board. And that we offer this expression of our thanks and best wishes. As the Human Trafficking Health Advisory Board recognizes the loyalty and devotion to public service of this conscientious individual, we add our sentiments of gratitude for a job well done. First appointed by Governor Snyder in 2015 and reappointed in 2017, Ruth has served on the Michigan Human Trafficking Health Advisory Board with purpose and vision. She imparted her vision to others through her book, The Realities of Human Trafficking, From the Inside Out to Freedom, among other initiatives. Ruth's advocacy over the past 6 years has been both a testament to her exceptional abilities and her commitment to eradicating human trafficking in Michigan and providing victims of this heinous crime with all the needed services and support to begin their path to recovery. She has treated her colleagues, as well as the residents of Michigan, with respect and devotion. Her graciousness and passion will be long appreciated by all who have come into contact with her. In special tribute, therefore, this document is signed and dedicated to honor and thank Ruth Rondon for her exceptional efforts on behalf of the Michigan Human Trafficking Health Advisory Board. We offer our best wishes to her entire family on this happy occasion. It is signed by me, Mary Whiteford, by Tommy Brann, he is Ruth's state representative, and then by every member of this committee: Phil Green, Sue Aller, Annette Glenn, Greg Van Workum, Rachel Hood, Felicia Brabeck, Abdullah Hamoud, Ann Bolin, Mark Huizinga, Timmy Beeson, Joe Tate, and Cherie Vanadar. So thank you very much, Ruth, and I'm going to get this to you in the next few days. Would you like to say a couple words, Ruth, since you're on with us? It dropped? Okay. Well, Ruth testified last year in our committee and told her story, and it was really impactful. We did end up working with the Human Trafficking Commission to have a group of 24 bills to address their studies and the tools that they suggested for us to put into law to help with this. We do have quite a few members of this committee who are sponsors of those bills, and we're going to introduce them as soon as we finish getting all those, they're called bluebacks, the final versions of the bills to be introduced. Okay, so I have a series of guests accompanied by somebody who has been a survivor or a victor, as many survivors are requesting to be called. The first one is some friends of mine through the Joseph Project. So I'm going to invite Nate Napper, CEO of the Joseph Project, to give a presentation. And then I also have Hannah and her parents who have been working with Nate. So if you want to come up and sit at the table with him as well. Thank you. And then you'll see on the side of the microphone is a button to push. When it's red, we'll be able to hear you.
Well, thank you very much, and good morning, Chairwoman Whiteford, and to each of the honorable members of this subcommittee. It is our privilege to join you this morning and to serve as a voice for survivors of human trafficking. My name is Nate Napper. I am an attorney. I'm a federal law enforcement officer. I'm also the founder and CEO of the Joseph Project. This is a Michigan-based nonprofit organization that connects survivors of human trafficking with pro bono legal services through a network of volunteer lawyers that we call legal first responders. And it's also my privilege today to be joined by survivor Hannah Chadwick, who we had the privilege of serving through the Joseph Project. She's a dear friend of mine. Hannah is, of course, accompanied today by her father, Bob, and her mother, Patricia. And so, Hannah, it's my pleasure to join you today in particular. I'm so grateful that you have this opportunity to make your voice heard in front of this body. I do believe that you deserve it. So it's my honor to join you in particular today as well. I have just a few brief moments to testify before the members of this subcommittee, and so I want to maximize that time and arrive straight to the point. And so I have two primary messages that I would like for this subcommittee to consider as I testify today. The first such message is that human trafficking survivors have deep legal needs. Human trafficking survivors have deep legal needs. It is often the case that when a survivor of trafficking exits the circumstances of their exploitation, so they are liberated, they are extricated, they are sometimes rescued, as it's referred to, it is at that point of liberation that they are often immediately confronted with a whole host of legal obstacles that prevent them from moving toward a brighter future if left unaddressed. And it's, of course, the case that survivors have unique legal needs according to the specifics of their story. Those needs run the gamut. But for purposes of our discussion today, I'd like to focus on just one such area of need because it's particularly prevalent for our discussion today, and that is the area of criminal record relief. Criminal record relief. The Polaris Project is, of course, the administrator of the National Human Trafficking Hotline. They provide a great amount of data on the topic of human trafficking, which we are typically reviewing. And according to one survey that the Polaris Project conducted related to state criminal record relief legislation, they found that in a survey of survivors, 91% of survivors who exited the circumstances of their trafficking exited that context with a criminal record, 91%. And so that's, of course, very high, and it underscores the need for survivors to be matched or connected with skilled criminal defense counsel. Again, we would call them a legal first responder at the Joseph Project. But I think it underscores something else, and that is we don't just want to match a survivor with a pro bono lawyer. In fact, we want that lawyer to win for a survivor. We want survivors to win. That's the main goal of the Joseph Project. And so part of their victory involves giving those pro bono attorneys the tools that they need in order to be victorious in a court of law. I'm staring at a state criminal record relief report card, also produced by the Polaris Project. This is back in 2019. So it's a little bit of time removed from its production, but it's still pertinent. This was done in conjunction with the American Bar Association, as well as Brooklyn Law School and the University of Baltimore School of Law. And again, it's a grade of Michigan's criminal record relief statutes. And unfortunately, Michigan currently sits at an F, according to the Polaris Project. And there are a variety of reasons for that, but one of the big reasons why is because of our state's limited expungement statute as it relates to survivors of human trafficking in particular. We would call that the safe harbor provision of our expungement law, right? And so under the terms of that current provision, what you have is a situation where the law does allow for the expungement of certain charges for survivors of trafficking, but it's very narrowly tailored in terms of its application, so that when you seek to have an expungement done of your criminal record through that statute, you're largely limited to violations that are connected to some sort of prostitution violation under the safe harbor provision. Now, you're going to hear testimony from Hannah and her parents, of course, today, and you're going to hear a story about a survivor who fortunately qualified for expungement under the terms of the statute as it exists today. However, one of the key messages that I have for you is that for many survivors, this is not the case. And the reason why is because they are wrestling with a whole host of legal violations outside of prostitution-related violations that they acquire in the course of their trafficking as a result of the force, fraud, or coercion to which they have been subjected. Most notable among these violations is drug-related violations. Drug-based coercion is a phrase that I do want to bring up in this subcommittee because it is perhaps the most common form of exploitation, the most common form of human trafficking that we see domestically here in the U.S. today. And so it's worth pointing out that under the definitions of human trafficking, according to Michigan state law, as it exists today, we define human trafficking, and specifically the coercion element of human trafficking, to include the controlling or the facilitating of another person's access to a controlled substance for other than legitimate medical purposes. So what that says is that under our laws today, we recognize drug-based coercion as a form of exploitation. That is enshrined in Michigan state law. At the same time, our expungement law is currently, at this moment, unwilling to expunge the drug-related violations that are acquired in the course of drug-based coercion. It's inconsistent, it doesn't make sense, and it needs to change. And so, what's the solution? I think a great start is the legislation that was introduced by Chairwoman Whiteford during the last legislative session. I have it listed as House Bill 5634. I don't know if that's going to change this session, but perhaps it will. But nonetheless, the language of the legislation that was proposed had an expansion of the expungement provision of our expungement law, of the safe harbor provision, you might say. And under that expanded language, what you had was a situation where all crimes, excluding assaultive crimes and trafficking-related violations, traffic laws, all crimes that were acquired in the course of one's force, fraud, or coercion, i.e. in a trafficking situation, were eligible for expungement. I would submit to you that if this body, if this legislature did nothing else for human trafficking survivors during the entirety of the legislative term here in 2021, you could rest your head on your pillow and consider that a victory on behalf of survivors in our state. The impact would be enormous. And so I want you to hear that first and foremost, that human trafficking survivors have deep legal needs. Criminal record relief is chief among them. And we have to give our pro bono lawyers, legal counsel, the tools that they need in order to achieve a brighter future for survivors. That's message number one. The second and final message that I have for you is that meeting the legal needs of human trafficking survivors has a cost, and that cost is worth it. Meeting the legal needs of human trafficking survivors has a cost, and that cost is worth it. At the Joseph Project, our legal first responders will render pro bono legal aid to a survivor of human trafficking. And it's worth pointing out that though the legal representation that they render is pro bono, that does not mean that there's not a cost associated with the rendering of that aid. It just means that there's not a cost to the survivor. What the Joseph Project tries to do is defray the costs that a survivor would otherwise incur, because we don't want the criminal justice system to re-victimize them as they are attempting to overcome their legal challenges. So there is a cost involved in the rendering of legal services. But what I would also point out is that the societal cost of inaction is more expensive than the cost that you're going to incur to represent a survivor and allow them to overcome those challenges. Here's what I mean. When you leave a survivor on their own with their legal needs unaddressed, you're opening them up potentially to a whole host of other problems if they matriculate back into a trafficking situation, which I have seen in my professional life on more than one occasion. It happens actually quite frequently. Here's what I mean. This is over the course of a 1-year span of time. Incarceration costs for a single year, $35,000. Welfare costs for a single year, $20,000. Foster care for just a single child, $26,000. Rehabilitation services for a heroin addiction, $25,000. Homelessness, 1 year, $36,000. These are the societal costs that you will potentially incur if you leave the legal needs unaddressed. So that's substantial. So as this committee does its work, and as this legislature does its work over the course of 2021 and beyond, and as you consider the issue of human trafficking and how you're going to deal with it legislatively, I would urge this subcommittee to consider strongly the legal needs of human trafficking survivors, because it's only after those legal needs are resolved that survivors are able to meaningfully move forward into a brighter future where they are fully free. Thank you, Chairwoman.
Thank you. You really teed us up for this bill package, so thank you. It's really important. Hannah, would you like to speak? Or your mom and dad, however you guys want to do it.
Just push this. My name is Hannah Chadwick, and when I was 23 years old, I was a victim of human trafficking. I wouldn't have been able to fully move forward with my life today if I was not, able to have the charge expunged. I was charged with prostitution when I had escaped, and my mom actually came and rescued me, and we called the police, and they came and they were able to get the other girl out, but they actually arrested her, and they arrested the 2 men who were there. And then I was later charged as a prostitute. And in the beginning, a detective, called my mom, thanked her for us coming forward. And then a couple weeks later, another detective called her and said that I was being charged with prostitution, and that that my mom just needed to wake up and realize I was just another junkie prostitute. So that that was like a really big turning point in my addiction. And it just really kind of escalated from there. I served, I was sentenced to 90 days in jail for it. And I mean, the impact of, just being trafficked and then feeling like nobody's hearing you and like nobody was there for you to help you. It's really horrific. And when I finally got clean, I had no idea like what to do. And like Nate was saying, someone may leave one situation and then get caught in another. And that's exactly what happened to me because I had no resources, no idea what to do. And, the second time was even worse. And I had no idea what to do with, the charge, and it was very difficult to apply for employment. I, was specifically denied employment multiple times because of that specific charge. And it's not something that you want to talk about with people. When you're filling out an application, you're asked to, check a box if you, are convicted of a crime, and if you check yes, please explain. Well, how do I explain to somebody that I don't know that I was trafficked and, charged with prostitution, even though I'm not a prostitute? And it's just, nobody wants to go through that. But I was very determined to find a way, out. And I just kept researching and trying to find a way to have this off of my record. And I was actually watching a news segment on Channel 4, and they were doing a segment on the Joseph Project. And so I immediately called my dad and my mom. I was like so excited, and I submitted like the questionnaire form that's on there, and literally the next day he called me. And, it was very simple. He just asked a series of questions to see if I qualified. And within 2 months, I was teamed up with a legal first responder, and she was at my house, going over what was going to be done and how she was going to present my case. And I think a month later, I was sitting in the courtroom having it expunged off my record.
Hannah, can you explain, so many people don't realize what it takes to get to the point of being exploited. Can you just briefly explain how you went from a young 20-something girl to being put into a situation like that?
Yes. So I was affected by the opioid crisis. I was severely addicted to opioids, and I was in a treatment center in Ann Arbor, and I left with another girl there. And we had no idea where we were going, what we were doing. We had no money. We were sick, from not using drugs. So we were just walking down the street, and a van pulled over, and 2 guys asked if we needed a ride. I was very young and naive, and, we got in the car, and they know all the right questions to ask. They know how to, find out information, like, where are you going? What are you doing? Oh, do you have contact with your family? Oh, you don't? I'm so sorry. Just asking the right questions and figuring out okay, if she goes missing, is it gonna make noise, or is, anybody gonna look for her, or is it gonna be quiet and won't make a difference? And unfortunately, a lot of, females who are addicts, when they go missing or something, it's just looked at as, they're on the run, or they're just out getting high. So they offered to, basically get us a room for the night so that we weren't out in the cold, and said that they had a job for us, and they would, get us drugs so we weren't sick. And like I said, I was very naive, and I just thought they were being nice. And I can remember thanking them. And then, as soon as we got back to the room, we were drugged, and we were kept in that state of just like oblivion. And, before we knew it, there were men coming to the door, and there was nothing we could do. There was nowhere to run. You couldn't hide anywhere. One of them would stay in the bathroom. The other one's outside keeping watch. And, just people, like you were saying earlier, they don't think that it can happen to them or to anybody they know or in their area. And I was very fortunate, and I grew up in a very nice area, and, 2 loving parents, and I just got addicted to drugs. And, they prey on those types of girls. So it was pretty horrific, and the only way I was able to get away when I was is because one of them accidentally left the phone in our new room, because before they were taking them out of the room so we couldn't call anybody. So I just, I was shaking, calling my mom, hanging up really fast because I didn't know if someone was going to walk in. And then finally I got through to her and just demanded that she be, in Ann Arbor the next day at this time. Don't get out of your car, wait there, I'll come to you. And she got there. She had no idea what was going on. And we just happened to be walking back from, they took us to get food for, one of the very few times. And I saw her, and I was, telling her to wait there, but like I said, she had no idea what was happening. She just thought I was out, using. So she helped me get away.
Thank you for bringing your mom and dad too.
Yeah.
Bob and Patricia, do you have a message for legislators?
I do. No mother should ever have to be sitting in front of you. Okay, that's that. The Joseph Project saved my daughter's life because she lost all hope. Once that was restored, she was able to get out of another situation. Sorry. Another situation. The expungement law needs to be expanded. There is no question about this. And there needs to be in place centers for these women to go to. My daughter is fortunate to come back to us. We were lucky she was not murdered, okay? When I got her, she told me to stay in the car. And I see her walking back with a group of girls and these big guys, and I thought, they're having a party. I'm gonna sit in the car? I don't think so. So I got out of the car, I watched where they walked in the hotel, and it was all open. And I went up the stairs to the guy, 300 pounds, and I said, which way? You've got my daughter. She's either left or right, and you're going to tell me. And he did, and I got her. And I never saw her run so fast out of a room. And I had no clue what was going on. I'm like, Hannah, slow down. I am not afraid of these people. And she goes, no, you don't understand. You don't understand. I said, no, slow down. I said, where's your luggage? I want your luggage. I made her go back and get the luggage. She threw it over the fence and said, run, Mom, run. So I went fast. I said, what? We get in the car. What is going on? What's going on? She goes, you don't understand. Drive. I drove. She told me, and there was a 7-Eleven, and I pulled into it, or CVS. And I said, we're calling the police. We're calling now. You're going to get that girl out, and you're going to help others. This is what we're doing. And because of that one act of kindness to help humanity, she gets charged with prostitution as a criminal. My faith in the system is very low because of that. And I think that they need education for the police, the detectives. He had no right to say that to me. He does not know my daughter's potential. 4.0 student, second year of college. He does not know her potential or who she was. So I've seen a lot. I've worked with people who were addicts. I have helped people. The Expungement Act needs to forgive the criminal and the civil. There needs to be in place centers where these women can go and get their lives back. They can be educated that there is something else that they can do. They do not need to go back into those situations. This can happen to anybody. And like I said, we're fortunate, okay? Other women are not as fortunate, and I see that. And it breaks my heart because the system is failing them.
Well, thank you for talking about that, because that is something I'm a nurse, so you always have a plan. So this meeting today is to have our plan, and that is one of the things. We're actually going to address the safe wraparound services for survivors after this point. So thank you for your testimony today, helping us to understand what it's like to be somebody who's been exploited, family and loved ones of them. Did you want to say one more thing, Nate?
Just thank you, Chairwoman. We appreciate it.
You're welcome. Thank you, guys. God bless you all.
May I say something?
Oh, Bob. Actually, Bob, did you want to say something?
Sure.
I'm so sorry.
Yeah, that's okay.
Squeaky wheel, so thank you.
It's okay. So I'm a physician, and what I've seen, the benefits of this Joseph's project, I have to thank Nate and Tina from the bottom of my heart for helping rescue my daughter and helping her start a new life. The impact of this is just beyond words, really. Changing her personality from downtrodden victim to someone who has pride and know that it wasn't something bad. And it happens, and it happens way more frequently than we know. 1 in 5, I think it is, children runaways become involved in this, and the statistic afterwards, the impact on them: mental illness, suicide, 25 to 50%, is pretty incredible. And echoing what Hannah's mom said, is that we do need aftercare for them, and the legal issues are very, very important. And then aftercare is also providing housing and therapy. Many are depressed, and like I said, they commit suicide, and it's just all very important. But back to Hannah, she's made incredible leaps in her own self-esteem, and again, I can't thank Nathan enough for all this in society. But we have to do something about the aftercare as well. giving them therapy, giving them places to stay, because again, Hannah was fortunate that her mom took her back in. A lot of them don't have that option, and they get re-involved in it. And then intimate partner violence, like slipping back into that, very common for that to happen, to become human trafficking. And again, why, I'm not exactly sure, but it happens, and they don't have anywhere else to go, or just the mental illness and self-esteem issues are really important to work on. So,
Thank you. Thank you for adding that. Okay, so I appreciate you guys. Next, so when we had our hearing last year, I made a friend in Bridget Robarge. She's been a very fierce advocate for survivors of human trafficking. And I remember her looking across the room at me last year and saying, "You legislators, you don't understand what you're talking about. You need to listen to us and help us find safe housing." And so I thought this would be a good chance for Bridget to come and assert a role that we can do working with you to help survivors.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for having me today. And I'm glad to see everybody's in good health. My name is Bridget Robarge, and I am the co-founder of the new Michigan Human Exploitation Advisory Team Coalition. Sorry, I've been extremely busy this week, fighting a few battles here that's occurring in Michigan. Give you a little bit of insight of what our coalition is about. It was formulated to advocate peer-led services and programs, as well as survivor-informed legislation on all levels of government. Our current motto is "Nothing for us without us." And I have actually been reappointed to the MDHHS Human Trafficking Health Advisory Board for my third term. A little bit more backstory of me. I am a lived experience expert on the subject matter of human trafficking. I was a victim of trafficking for 6 years. I was trafficked from the age of 21 to the age of 27, and I have been out for the past 8 years. For these past 8 years, I have been advocating nonstop for victims and survivors of human trafficking across the state and as well across the country. Thank you, Mary, for asking me to come here to speak on the issue as far as housing and wraparound services for human trafficking. There's very, very, very few shelters available for adult survivors of human trafficking. I currently am consulting with a local agency here in the Detroit area that has programming for youth female victims of human trafficking. Now, with the awareness that has been going on across, the state as well as the country for the past 8 years of my experience with advocating, the awareness is rising, people are identifying, but then we don't have the services in place to assist them. I just received a call last week for a 19-year-old female survivor of trafficking that was trafficked down to Miami, a local group in Miami. We're able to get her out of the situation and then fly her back to Michigan. Now, I've spent the last week searching, cutting through all the red tape through agencies and their grant funding, because they may get it for they may have funding for domestic violence, or they have funding for sexual assault, but once it comes to human trafficking, it's, well, we can't accept them because it doesn't fit within our grant guidelines. We are, and I'm screaming it from the rooftops, we need assistance for survivors of human trafficking, peer-led survivor services, housing for survivors of human trafficking on all levels, for the single females, the single males, the LGBTQ community, the survivors that have children by their traffickers. There's not enough services to provide the proper assistance to people like me, Anna, and Ruth. So I'm just really reaching out to everybody today on behalf of the survivor community, to please understand the urgency of services and housing assistance for survivors of human trafficking.
Thank you, Bridget. We lost your visual feed, but when that went, we could hear you very clearly. So thank you. After having conversations with you, then I did reach out to Debbie Kane, who's going to be our next presenter. She's the Executive Director for the Michigan Domestic and Sexual Violence Prevention and Treatment Board, which is housed within DHHS, so within our budget. And she is going to give a presentation about a plan. So, and I had asked Debbie, hey, can you come and give us kind of a framework so we understand what we're working towards and work on getting something worked into our budget. So thanks for being here, Debbie.
Thank you so much, Chairwoman Whiteford and committee members, for allowing me to be here today and share with you some of the work that we're doing through the DHHS Division of Victim Services. I want to particularly thank Bridget and Ruth, both of who've been members of our commission in DHHS, and wonderful women as mentors to many of us, me included. So it was great to get to hear them first. I am the director of the Division of Victim Services in DHHS. The division is your governmental partner to provide information, consultation, and advice on legislative initiatives and any policies affecting domestic violence, sexual assault, child abuse, child sexual abuse, stalking, and human trafficking are areas that we work extensively in, along with other areas as well, elder abuse and some other areas. We work hard to try to provide a voice for victims and are housed in DHHS. The division was created in 2017 with the merger of two organizations, each of which had a 40-year history of serving victims of crime, including domestic violence, sexual assault, and stalking. The Michigan Crime Victim Services Commission is a state agency within DHHS and was combined with the Michigan Domestic and Sexual Violence Prevention and Treatment Board, which is a legislatively created board, and as such is housed in DHHS. The division was created through the division of those two, and I'm sorry, my paper here is not cooperating with me. But the division houses the Michigan Domestic and Sexual Violence Prevention and Treatment Board, which is also available and legislatively tasked to advise the legislature, governor, and other state entities on issues of domestic violence and sexual assault. We deal with the Michigan Crime Victim Services Commission, which oversees crime victim compensation in the state of Michigan. The Sexual Assault Evidence Kit and Reporting Commission, which has developed a uniform statewide system, one of the first in the country, to actually track the submission and status of sexual assault evidence kits. And we recently have been fortunate that we were assigned the Human Trafficking Health Advisory Board, which again, both Bridget and Ruth have sat on for us. So you can see that we're very actively involved in each of those areas. With the Health Advisory Board, a big emphasis of the board has been looking at the health services needs, particularly looking at developing things that relate to making sure that people in healthcare systems, and I hear we have a couple of nurses who are involved here, including you, Rep. Whiteford, that healthcare people are aware of human trafficking and know how to identify that. That board is now under the auspices of our Division of Victim Services, and proudly so. We're very excited to get them and to do a lot more work. We certainly acknowledge that there's a lot to be done in the area of human trafficking, and we are very excited to get to be a part of that. I want to make sure, and hold on one second if you don't mind, that part of what we're able to do is through the Health Trafficking Board, we're looking at making sure that one of the areas that we are conscious of is that if we indeed have to, if we're going to work in doing people having a better understanding of the what trafficking is and being aware of it, that there must be referrals. And I think it's well spoken to the reality that there aren't nearly enough trafficking resources in our state. So one of our plans is that we will actually be looking at using our Victim of Crime Act dollars, VOCA dollars, which actually allow for doing work and making it a priority that human trafficking issues will be a priority in going forward by putting out grant applications in the near future. This funding is available through a federal grant that we receive. Each state receives it to use in a variety of different crime areas, including trafficking, which is one of the newer areas that has been added. So we definitely plan to be working with using those dollars. This funding comes with strict requirements of what is and isn't allowable to spend the money on, since it is administered by the Department of Justice and is federal grant dollars. The grants require that there must be a competitive bid process, and that each of those applications come in, they are reviewed and evaluated. And generally, we get more applications in every area than we actually have money. So that competitive bid process is how we make a decision in actually determining which of those areas will indeed be funded, or which of those programs. We are working very hard to get that application out within the next year and try to make sure that we can up the resources that will be available for housing and for the kinds of services that you just heard people talk about, making sure that counseling is available, and that those who have been trafficked move to the survivor victor category by having the resources that they need to actually be able to get the help and support. And I'm so pleased to hear about the Joseph Project. That's new to me. And it's wonderful to know that there are great resources like that, but certainly many, many more are needed in our state. We're very committed to making this a priority area and are in the process of working much more in this area right now. Part of what we will also be doing is, in addition to making it a priority of our work, we're working in partnership with other state, federal, and local organizations. For instance, not only are we involved through the division and the Health Trafficking Board that's in DHHS, but I sit on the commission through the Attorney General's office run by Kelly Carter. We are newly funding a victim advocate for trafficking to assist them with the human trafficking cases through the Attorney General's office. We are working very carefully to ensure that, we look at the resources that are available, the dollars that are available to us, and do everything that we possibly can to try to do a better job of addressing human trafficking. The mission of our board has been to identify a variety of different state, local, and federal agencies who are involved. One of the things through the Human Trafficking Commission that we will be doing is actually working with a subcommittee that I sit on, along with one of our other staff, and we'll actually be helping programs with looking at how they can write both state and federal grants. Almost all of the federal grants are competitive bid process, so your acumen and knowing what to write and how to do that is something that we hope to be able to help other agencies in our state be familiar with that and know how they have the best opportunity to get dollars both at a state and federal level as they move forward. So ensuring wraparound services is one of the areas that we're definitely moving toward. And as I said, we'll be looking at everything from temporary housing, whether that's shelter, hotels, motels, meals for those who are brought in, transportation, making sure that therapists, counselors, and other people are available. So that's part of what we'll be addressing in the near future. So with that, I would be more than happy to answer any questions that people might have. And I want to thank you again, Chairwoman, for your commitment and the commitment of your committee to making sure that this is an issue that's getting paid attention to. And I recognize the courage of all of the people who spoke before today. It's not an easy thing to share a personal experience, and it's a definite process to be willing to talk about this at a public level. So we thank them so very much for that. So again, if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer those.
Thank you, Debbie. And I appreciate you saying how many different partners there are at the state and federal level Well, as I've traveled around the state, I've found there's so many people and groups around all over our state, caring communities who want to do something. So what I would love to see is some kind of public-private partnership where we're all working together, set aside some general fund money, whatever we need to do, in a very difficult time for everybody, but fiscally as well. But I think this is something that's important, and to be able to leverage some VOCA funds, state funds, and then private partners as well to make sure that this is sustainable. So, anybody have a question? Nope. Thank you so much, then. We're going to move forward. Yep, and we'll be in touch, okay? We've got a lot of work together to do.
Thank you.
So my next guest actually is an FBI agent, so we're going to have to go and turn all the cameras off. It is FBI policy for that.